Hello, traders. It's 8:02 a.m. Chicago time on Thursday, the 27th of August, 2020. This is episode number 1828. Derivatives trading is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. This morning, the market is in standby mode here with an allocation, this slight allocation to safety, but we do have Fed's Chair Powell scheduled to speak in about 8 minutes or so. The Fed's chair is expected to give us an overview of the monetary policy framework, and it's expected to be a market mover. Adjusted mic, thank you. It's expected to be a market mover. So that's what we're looking for. I'm going to make this super quick today. There's really not much for me to offer. I did not participate in yesterday's rally once it broke the 50. It's not my type of trade. It's just the kind of day where I would be fading all day. So I'd rather sit on my hands. As most of you know that once a trend starts going with very few rotations down, I'm not going to be buying the high, looking for higher prices. It's just not my style. Anyway, today, a couple of events, as I said, Fed's Chair Powell at 9:10 Eastern in about 7 minutes. We did have GDP growth came in at 31.7, contraction of 31.7%, expected at 32.9, slightly better. And then initial claims came in slightly higher, not much, 2,000 claims, 1.006 versus 1.004. Um, Currently, Fed's George is speaking, and we still have this Jackson Hole symposium, economic policy symposium going. And so we expect to hear policy type stuff throughout the day. So make sure your news feed is up and running. And that's that. As of as In terms of yesterday, the primary scenario was a push through 50. I expected a splash through 50, 51, a pullback, and then a grind up through the end of the day. As you can see here in the green, push up through 50, 51, pullback, and then grind for the session. Basically, what we got, it definitely went a lot farther than I expected. Again, I didn't participate in the rally. No trades for me yesterday. I just did not see it. Did not see things set up that I can get on with a reasonable amount of risk. I know many people probably think, well, gee, all you had to do is get long. Yes, but that's not how the chart looked on the hard right edge in the live action. So there's no point in me on the fly inventing trades. That's just unprofessional in my opinion, and basically I'm just doing what those people who struggle are doing, which is to just quickly um, jump on something just because I believe I'm going to see something that I don't necessarily see. So yesterday scenario one was on point. Here's what it looked like. There's what it looked like. It consolidated for a little bit in the morning. We did have a pullback into the prior day's range, and then once it broke, it had one pullback that was clean, and then from there, it was quite a steady run for about 2 hours actually, before we consolidated for a little bit and then continued to 54.78. There was a nice pullback here in the afternoon. I wasn't around, didn't quite get to VWAP or mid, but there was a pullback that set up for a run into the close. We closed near highs with the point of control near the high as well, with a point of control near the high as well, which gives us energy, which is likely to give us energy to continue higher into the overnight session. However, the overnight session only got 2.5 points better. Yesterday, as the market was pushing up, so was the delta. So we had delta and the market kind of moving together. So that's what we would want to see if we were long. We would want to see lifting take place along with the price action. The overnight session. The overnight session had 182,000 contracts, a little bit better than yesterday, but mostly it's been trending down or flagging down after yesterday's push. We did push a higher high to 83.50. Oh, look at this. This is Powell speaking. Let me turn up the news feed. This is kind of early. Stopped right against liquidity here. And back to the scene of the crime. The scene of the crime is down here. Again, 75. That was the scene of the crime for the GDP as well. 75, 34.75. So return to the scene of the crime potential here. So a bit of a move there, about 15 points, 15 points. A lot of stops got lifted there. You could see the red line, a lot of stops getting lifted, a few thousand. Sorry, yeah, this is kind of happening on top of the trader bite. They're seeking to achieve inflation that averages 2% over time. They will offset theories of weak inflation with inflation above 2%. Fed releases new strategy will target average inflation and put emphasis on broad and inclusive employment. Fed to seek inflation that averages 2% inflation to time. Fed places employment before inflation and new monetary policy strategy says it will seek to ensure that employment does not fall short of its maximum level, which means that they'll be more likely to provide collateralized liquidity to banks. Committee now seeks to achieve inflation that averages 2% over time, will offset periods of weak inflation with inflation above 2% for some period of time. Fed's committee judges that the downward risks to employment inflation have increased. So back to the scene of the crime here. They're really putting a blanket statement out there. Fed says longer-term inflation expectations that are well anchored at 2% enhance the committee's ability to promote maximum employment. Man, it's like wartime. I'll keep an eye. I'll keep switching back to Bookmap here to show you what the action is. Here's the current action in the overnight session on 30-minute bar chart. Volume has increased a little bit, not much though. There wasn't all that much volume in that move. Delta's positive for the session so far. It's notice that it's having a hard time maintaining above the mid. See that mid line, the blue line? Let me enlarge this. It appears to be struggling to hold above the mid so far. So these are, again, 30-minute bars. The mid is right here, this blue line, and you can see their wicks above the mid throughout. Looking kind of heavy. A weak low now. Weak low. I'd expect us to seek prices lower first. We have some liquidity at 67, 34.67, but 34.62 looks like 63.62 looks like the next stop here. That's how it's shaping up to be. Delta's starting to go negative, starting to roll over. Size on the tape on the sell side here. Look at the size on the sell side on this. So earlier This was about an hour ago, and then just now, larger cell size here. Anyway, let me wrap this up. Um, so the overnight session consolidating, holding below mid, as I said, this looks a little weak. It looks like it wants to rotate lower. If it gives up to 68, looking for 62 as the next potential test area, and a potential bounce there. We'll be paying attention to the 62 below as it pushes lower. Yesterday did not have value really because it was a trend day. Yesterday had a lot of structure in it, multiple distributions. The day session had multiple distributions in it, as you can see here. So there are a lot of low volume nodes and high volume nodes to contend with. These create a pretty great uh, risk reward scenario for when they push. So if it does not hold the 62, then look for the high volume node. If it doesn't hold the high volume node, then look for the area below it at 55. If it doesn't hold the 55, look for the high volume node. If it doesn't hold the high volume node, look for 48, 49, 50, which brings us back to yesterday's launch point, consolidation point. So this is this is the pattern here is a move from low volume node or high volume node to low volume node, and then if it's not able to push higher, it moves down to the high volume node, consolidates. If it cannot push higher, it'll likely move down to the next low volume node. If it doesn't bounce and consolidate and push above the high volume node, then expect a short here against the high volume node to take us to the next high volume node, consolidate, push up. If it cannot hold that, if it does hold it and continue, then you look for the high volume node again. If it does not, then look for the low volume node beneath that, and so on and so forth. This is the auction process in a nutshell. And yesterday, the way this auctioned, um, it tells us that there's a lot of structure that the market can work with. Right now, we are stuck in this high volume area up here. As you can see from the overnight session, we're stuck in this high volume area. If it gives that up, it starts. If it gives up to 68, it'll likely make a run to 62. Okay, so that's what we're looking at. Again, this is a full session profile here. This is an RTH only profile. I'm looking at both, and right now, because the RTH session hasn't started, we only have the overnight profile. We added about 20,000 contracts since Fed's Chair Powell started speaking, and here it is pushing above the mid again. So this thing has pushed down far enough to find support now, and so it's telling me that the picture has changed. This creates a lot of complications for setting up scenarios because the mood is changing on the fly right before your very eyes here. The mood is kind of switching back and forth. Here it is at 34.80. It looks like it'll probably squeeze the 34.80 now. We have a weak high. We're retesting the prior high, so what that tells us is this high is likely to be weak, although it was a decent high before. If this was an unfair price, the market wouldn't be up here. So it does look like it dried up near the lows and is rotating up, and this is a high probability lift at the 34.80 here. There it is. There it is, just as I'm speaking. This is kind of like an impromptu, live impromptu here. Look at the stops getting lifted. The red line stops are getting lifted above the 34.80, and so this is what a weak high is expected to look like and participate like. If this was a strong high, we would not come all the way back up here. If this was an excess high, we wouldn't come all the way back up here. And so now what we monitor for is a rotation back into the 78 or so, a test and a continuation if it still has strength. The NQ has consolidated for a while and has taken off. I'll show you the NQ here. NQ, nice channel. Nice triangle, and has broken to the upside, new all-time highs, and just the NQ's hitting that 12,000 mark. 12,000 mark. So the NQ, once it comes back here, we expect this to be a base of support, and if it doesn't, we'll likely see a very quick flush down through if it does not hold that triangle and this volume it had overnight. That's the next scenario. But right now, this impulse up gives us a very bullish picture. Okay, so let's move to what's expected for today. The S&P continuing to 86, already ripping. The S&P scenarios have completely changed now, unfortunately. All right. So the S&P again in a gap. This may pull back a little bit. The next area up I have is a measured move extension at 34.88. Expecting some sort of reaction up here, but overall expecting this to open, respond a little bit, pull back, probably pull back to that 80 high volume node or high liquidity price, and then push higher back into this 88, and then squeeze towards that 3,500. Can you believe we're at 3,500? We just got through 3,400, and we're almost at 3,500. And then I expect a correction by the end of the day. That's scenario one. That's how it's shaping up. I know that seems excessive, but you gotta go with what the market is doing. The secondary scenario is an open that corrects some of the inventory and then pushes higher into the 88, squeezes through, consolidates up here before it turns back, and then comes back into line with yesterday's point of control as the market may be extended. The structures below are very weak in terms of the auction. And what I would watch out for on any selling, I would watch out for the 68 area, the 68.50 area. If it does go away, then we're looking at, again, 62, and then the high volume node, and then 54, and then the high volume node, and then 48. And that brings us back in line, and that repairs some of the structure that was left behind yesterday. Okay, so I'll leave you with that. Good luck. I can't provide any more kind of perspective here. The market's just on a rip tear, and there's nothing for me to refer against to the left in terms of an existing auction. Good luck today, and I'll catch you tomorrow. Take care.